Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to have you here, and welcome to our press conference to announce our Saints Hall of Fame class of 2011. I'm Ken Trahan, General Manager of the Saints Hall of Fame, and on behalf of our Board of Directors and the New Orleans Saints, it's great to have you here this afternoon. Of course, each and every year, our Media Selection Committee convenes to consider nominations for the Saints Hall of Fame, and of course, we have a very good process to determine who these electees will be. It's always spirited debate, but these guys have their hearts in it and do a terrific job. We also select a Joe Gimelli Fleur-de-Lis Award winner each and every year, which is all about contributions to the betterment of the New Orleans Saints organization over an elongated period of time. Here today, we're pleased to be able to tell you about the gentleman that will encompass our class of 2011. Let me make it very clear that this is not the induction that takes place in the fall as part of our All Saints weekend. This is simply the announcement about who is going to be inducted into the Saints Hall of Fame, because this is not the induction that takes place later in the year. And we've arrived at some pretty good choices this year. First and foremost, our Joe Gimelli Fleur-de-Lis Award winner is a gentleman that many of us in the media industry know very well and we're very fond of because of his contributions. He was an ego-less individual who just went about his business doing his job in great fashion each and every day on the balance of an over 5-decade career, of which he spent 21 of those years here in the New Orleans area in radio, and prior to that in television as well. He got here in 1957, and he stayed here from that point on, other than 3 months when he moved to Lake Charles to work briefly. I had the pleasure of working with him and absolutely loved him. He helped get me started in the industry, and I'll always be grateful. But here today to speak on his behalf is a gentleman that also worked with him for quite some time on the radio side of things with the Saints broadcast on WWL. Our Joe Gimelli Fleur-de-Lis Award recipient for 2011 is Bruce Miller. Bruce cannot be with us today because Bruce's health is not very good at this stage, so please keep him in prayer as we move forward. And it's his most vigorous intention to be here in the fall when we induct him, and we certainly hope that's the case. But I thought there would be no one better than Jim Henderson to come share on his behalf, because Jim shared microphones with him and worked with him and understood who Bruce was and remains today as well as anyone. So Jim, if you will, say a few words on behalf of Bruce Miller.
Thanks, Kenny. First of all, Sandy, congratulations. One of the worst mistakes this organization ever made was letting you go, because you had a lot of football left. Congratulations. It's a pleasure to watch you as a player and to get to know you a little bit as well. Quality man. As is Bruce Miller. Most of you guys know Bruce and have known him down through the years. Gosh, there are a lot of Bruce Miller stories. I'd just like to recount a couple for you. When Archie and I were the broadcast team, Bruce had the misfortune to handle the locker room show with Jim Mora. After a tough loss, the very first guy that Jim Mora talked to was Bruce Miller. And I think Sammy would vouch for this. You didn't want to be the first guy in Jim Mora's sights after a difficult loss, because there truly was no question you could ask the man that he wouldn't erupt or castigate you for. And I swear, when Archie and I would throw it down to the locker room, and now let's join Bruce Miller with head coach Jim Mora after today's tough defeat, you could actually hear Bruce sweating on the radio. You could hear the rivulets of sweat drip into his underwear and down onto the floor. And it didn't matter what he asked Jim Mora, he was going to get a face full of Jim Mora. Bruce is such a wonderful guy. He would be the first to admit, I think, that he was somewhat depressed about some of the things that he would see down through the years. I remember in 1982, before Larry Matson and I became the broadcast team, I actually sat in the press box next to Bruce at Saints games, because we were traveling with the team then with Bum Phillips as the head coach. And it was early in the season. I think we're playing the Vikings up at Old Metropolitan Stadium. I'm sitting next to Bruce in the press box. This is the first quarter. Vikings first possession. Tommy Kramer takes them down and they kick a field goal. And Bruce looks at me and he goes, "Oh God," he said, "look at what Tommy Kramer's doing to us today. Can you imagine what Dan Fouts is going to do to us next week?" It was 5 minutes into the game and he was always depressed about next week's loss. And I think probably one of the reasons that occurred is Bruce kind of cut his broadcasting teeth doing two-lane football back in the 60s and early 70s with Wayne Mack. And I remember when I came here in 1978, I've been here 33 years, and I remember a column that I read, and it might have been Marty Muley in the paper, talking about Bruce and how personally he took the two-lane defeats, because he really couldn't separate the fact that he was just calling their games. When they lost, it hurt him personally, and Tulane lost a lot. And I won't do this story justice, but Archie told it to me one time. Back in the early 70s, he's listening to a Tulane broadcast with Wayne and with Bronco, and Tulane's getting killed as usual late in the first half, and Bruce has already muttered 10 "oh brothers" and 5 "circle the wagons." It's late in the first half. There's a stoppage in play, and Bruce chimes in, "Well, Wayne, another stoppage in play. There's got to be another penalty on Tulane." Yeah, the officials are walking it off. It's going to be a 5-yarder. It's going to be a 10-yarder. They're still walking it off. It's going to be a major penalty, a 15-yarder. Oh my God. Wayne, I can't believe it. They're still walking it off. This is going to be a 25, a 30, a 35. This is going to be a 40. This is going to be a 50-yard penalty on Tulane. And Wayne finally says, "Bruce, I think it's halftime." And after a short pause in his basso profundo voice, Bruce just said, "Oh." Wonderful guy. I love him to death. You all know him as well as I do. And I echo Kenny's thoughts. I hope he's in very good health when he comes to receive this award. Richly deserved. Wonderful guy. Sweet man. Bruce Miller. Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, one very brief one on Bruce. I can't resist when Bruce was doing the games at Tulane, again, Benny Ellender was the coach, and many of you probably remember that have been around a long time, the famous 5th down play at Miami. Well, Bruce is watching this unfold, and the moral to the story was the University of Miami got a 5th down mistakenly by the officials given to them. Tulane had gotten the stop, and somehow they gave him another down. Nobody catches it, and all of a sudden Bruce sees it, and he's talking to Wayne on the air, and he starts screaming out, "Benny! Benny! It's 5th down! Benny! They can't do this! It's 5th down! No! It's 5th down!" Now, Bruce is at Orange Bowl Stadium. If you've ever been there, it's about 2,000 miles above the sea, okay, from the press box, as if Benny Ellender could hear him. But I think that reflected just how passionate he was. And the same thing with the Saints. He loved the Saints. That's why he got so depressed when things went bad, which they often did when Bruce was the guy. The unfortunate part is that when Coach Morrow was here, they were successful. And Jim didn't dislike Bruce. Jim was just being Jim. And I think Jim was fine after the fact in understanding that Bruce was just doing his job. He just happened to be in the guy in that particular circumstance at that time. So again, congratulations to Bruce. And again, keep him in prayer. Hopefully we'll be able to have him here in the fall. Our Saints Hall of Fame class of 2011 consists of one person. And the committee felt like that was appropriate based upon who he was and what he accomplished. And he was here for 6 seasons. He should have been here, as was mentioned previously, for a lot longer. I think he went on to do some pretty good things long after he departed New Orleans in the NFL. But business decisions are made and he moved on. But not before he accumulated some very impressive numbers. He was a Pro Bowl player in 2001. He left here with 28 interceptions, 3rd all-time in New Orleans Saints history. He remains the all-time leader in interceptions returned for touchdowns with 4. He accumulated 100 or more tackles in 3 of his 6 seasons, which is no small feat for a defensive back. Consistent as could be, great hitter, tremendous anticipation. Had 3 interceptions in the season opener in 2001 at Buffalo. Greg Williams was the coach of that Buffalo team. We were reminiscing about that yesterday on the golf course. Just a tremendous player. Everyone here recognized how good he was, except for maybe the coach at the time. And that said, he moved on and did some great things, but he'll always be remembered most for what he accomplished here in New Orleans. And our committee certainly felt like that accomplishment was most worthy of being elected for induction into the Saints Hall of Fame. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you at this time our Saints Hall of Fame inductee for 2011, Sammy Knight. Sammy?
I'd like to thank the Saints Hall of Fame for this prestigious award. I'm very proud to be a member of the Saints Hall of Fame. I'd like to thank Joe for hosting this at his restaurant. Me and my wife, Frida, have had plenty of great meals here. Also, I'd like to thank her and the rest of my family for being there for me and supporting me throughout this whole process. When I got the news that I was inducted into the Saints Hall of Fame, I was really shocked. Generally, I know a lot of times, whenever you're in the Hall of Fame, it normally happens 3-4 years after. But for me, this is just a exciting time. I grew up in the city of New Orleans. When I came here, I was a free agent. Came here, Mike Ditka, very intimidating coach. Growl in the face, just look at you when you do something, and, give you that scarl, and then you have to, go to the sideline and explain to him what happened. And normally it's a long walk back to the locker room after that. So it's plenty of fond memories. Just really, I think the most important thing that really stood out to me was the passion that the New Orleans Saints fans had for football. You know, when we got here, I was just talking to someone earlier about all the brown bags that you would see in the dome when we first got here, and deservingly so. We deserved a couple of brown bags by the way we played, but the group of guys came in and really, I think, transformed that team and the mentality of the players and the mentality of the city. You know, a guy like Jake Delhomme, Keith Mitchell, a lot of other free agents who came in, Leroy Glover came in and kind of changed this franchise, and I was just happy to be a part of it. We would always sit around and talk about, you know, we're not going to stand for this, we're not going to be, you know, the doormat of the league. We want to turn this franchise around, we want to win. And fortunately for us, you know, Coach Hazlitt came in and really brought a defensive scheme that allowed us to play and showcase our skills. And you know, from there on, we just got confident and more confident. And you know, my hat's off to Sean Payton and what he's done with this franchise, taking it to the next level. And their players are excellent. You know, I remember coming back in 2008 with Jacksonville and playing against this offense, and Drew Brees, the job that he's done is just outstanding. And these guys have taken it to a whole nother level. And so I'm glad to see that the city of New Orleans is well taken care of, and you should be very proud of your team, the coach, and the quarterback, and the defense, and the job that they're doing thus far. You know, the one thing also that stands out about New Orleans is there's no franchise like it. You know, I played for the Dolphins, the Chiefs, and the Giants, and the Jags, and the one thing that I missed about New Orleans more so than anything was the relationship that you had with the fans. You know, only in New Orleans you could really walk down the street and sit on a stoop and, you know, have a cold drink and crawfish and sit and talk about the game. And you know, even though you might have blown the covers, you know, they still had your back, and then they knew that you were going to come back and fight the next week for them. And they really felt like they were part of the team. You know, we talked about Bruce and guys that really took it to heart. You know, whenever New Orleans lost, the night on the town was not the same. You know, people were down. You know, it just wasn't the same. But if you got that big win, especially against Atlanta, it was a party. People were dancing out in the street. So I definitely remember those feelings, and more importantly than that was the relationships that you had with the people in the facility. Guys like Chief, guys like Silky, you know, even Dean. You know, there's so many fond memories of executives that you really could sit down and have conversations with. Even Joe in the ticket office, just fun conversations, not only about football, but about life. And you felt like it was a family atmosphere in New Orleans. And that's the one thing that I really missed when I went to other organizations, was the family atmosphere that you had. Not only from the fans, but from the executive standpoint. And those are the things that I miss most about the city of New Orleans. And with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I'm just joyous and appreciative of the situation. You know, wish the Saints good luck this year. And Kenny, again, thanks for having me here. My wife, thanks for being here with me. And look forward to seeing you guys in the fall.